Hello everybody. I've already filmed a partial of this video, but I'm going to refilm most of it here because I've gotten an addition. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the DirecTV receivers that I currently have here. These are some older receivers here, which DirecTV no longer offers, but luckily they're pretty lenient about what you can and cannot use anymore. Pretty much if the receiver starts with an H or an HR, you can still use it, with one exception, and that would be the H10. If it supports MPEG-4 and SWIM, it can be used. Now in some cases it can be a little tricky, which we'll get to in a minute, but with enough messing around, because they don't want you to, it can still be used. So start in here, and this is an H24. This particular H24, I believe this one is an H24-200, made 11/10 of 2010. What is that? That's November 10th. This one was made in Indonesia. Now this is one of two receivers that belong to my uncle. In fact, there's a video on this exact receiver. It was this one, somewhere on my channel. I think it might be a short. It might have gotten deleted. But anyway, it was showing this. Well, the weird thing about H24s and any legacy receiver at this point is that these are leased receivers, meaning you can't own them. You can't buy them and reactivate a used one because they're leased. However, the thing is that at this point in time, you pretty much own them, because DirecTV no longer distributes these, they no longer refurbish these, they no longer ask for these back. If you cancel your service, they remove it from the account, and they, clear the receiver ID and card number out of their system, and this is basically, essentially, no longer even known to exist by them. They tell you to keep it or recycle it. Well, I kept them, and I did activate 2 of these successfully. So if them telling you we don't reactivate used receivers, they're adamant they don't, that's not true. I've done it now 4 different times, 4 different calls, 4 different representatives working there, and none of them really gave me too much of a fuss about it. In fact, none of them even acted like it was anything out of routine except for the one we'll get into in a minute. Anyway, this one has an older access card, which is weird. I suppose I could turn on the actual lights. This one has, I should probably flip this invoice with my name and address on it over. This one has an older access card, which is weird. This here is a D2, I believe they call this, access card. Please focus, not on the TV. It's just kind of yellowed from being in here for years and years and years, but yeah, this is an older access card, older than the H24 itself. So I don't know how what the story of this is. This receiver here from 2010, my uncle got this in 2010. This is not refurbished. This was not ever refurbished. Most of these by now are on their 2nd or 3rd refurbishment and being sent back out. No, this is not the case. So maybe, I think he started that service in 2008. My guess, this card was in something else, and when they came out to install it, for whatever reason, they just put this in this receiver. But, as you can see, it still authenticates. And that's the other thing. I was reading, and they say, if you somehow do get them to reactivate a used receiver, which they absolutely do not do, if you somehow manage to, they absolutely cannot reuse the same access card. They will require you to have them send you a new access card. Well, apparently that's false as well. Of course, the lines are kind of blurred on what they will and will not do at this point, because originally they were owned by, what was it, Hughes Electronics or some shit. Then AT&T bought them. Now AT&T's spinning them off into their own company again. So there's a possibility that originally DirecTV wouldn't do something, then AT&T did it, and then now they're not doing it again, or, you know, any combination of that type of thing. I don't know. Anyway, here is the remote, and I'm going to show you this next receiver as well. It's right here on this TV. I figured now that I had these activated, I wouldn't deactivate them, even though I got another one. I technically could keep this one for later. This is an H24-700. And I'm not going to pick it up, but it's also manufactured in 2010. This one has the access card that you would expect to find in an H24. I want you to notice how sharp this is being on component here. Yes, I realize the aspect ratio is wrong, but anyway, one thing about the DirecTV receivers, it's better than Spectrum, is I can change this to whatever I want to change it to, instead of the Spectrums, which don't. Anyway, the H24s, of course, have the older UI. This is called the HD UI, but it's basically the same. What the hell? Okay. Why are you not It's mad because I pulled the card out, I think. I don't know. Wow, what the hell? Why are you being so slow? Yeah, I pissed it off. This one's on the wrong format. Oh, Jesus. I've really pissed it off. It's not responding now. What in the hell? Ooh, I love this.
Howdy, 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 how. Heedy, 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 heedy. Oh my God, Maggie, you okay? Do you need mouth-to-nose resuscitation?
Mouth-to-nose resuscitation. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I love that. That's one of my favorite Family Guy scenes. Alright, has this thing gotten its act together now? Not really. Yeah, it has. Okay. It's in pillar box. I don't want it in pillar box. I want it in original format. There we go. Anyway, of course, being an H24 as well, this one also has the older but not oldest UI. Same thing. And I suppose I can show you the info in here, and you can't see it, but it says H24-700. Software is 0xF3E, and this one, which is still pissed off at me for some reason. Here we go, H24-200, 0xF3E. Now, one cool thing about the H24, I will not show you on this one because it's pissed off. Anyway, let's move on and show you the least interesting of them, because it ties into what the interesting thing I was going to show you is, and that is the Genie, which I have thrown in this room because I don't have to interact with it in here. Peanut remote. I don't like the Peanut remote, but here it is.
Of course, the big ballot win of the night was over.
And, oh, shut up.
Voters turned out to vote in support.
You can see it's got the newer, flat UI with the advertisements right there. See, let's get a look at this.
So that he can, of course,
The advertisements in the guide. Oh, look at this. DirecTV perks. Chance to win it. Advertisements in the guide. Gotta love that. And this nice flat UI that's just bland and boring. I don't really have a problem with the Genie systems. They're reliable, they work, but I just don't like this flat UI. I don't like the advertisements in the guide. Anyway, let's, oh, shut up. Let's,
and they beat him by a lot. So, yeah,
Jesus, just do what I'm telling you. Don't quit lagging.
Any very,
If we go, what am I looking for?
that begs the question. You're a member
I just want the
of
about page. Where is it on this thing? Why is everything so stupid and different?
They took different approaches.
No, Jesus.
Kind of a denial.
Everything is so stupid and different compared to the other ones.
What happened last night was
Info, here we go. Info. This is an HR54R1, whatever R1 means, /500 on software 0x1C9D.
reflection about Republican.
So there you go.
Okay.
And this is one of the newer, I'll show you here, one of the newer HR54s. I just got it wedged up in here. This is one of the newer ones with this really cheap single piece thing here. I know you can't really see that very well, but yeah. Definitely like the HR44 better than the 54, at least that style of 54. But functionally they're fine. I just jammed it in there where I don't have to mess with it. And here we have another H24. This is the second one.
Every animal on Earth lays eggs. This is a first.
This is the second one that was my uncle's as well. This one was the one that was in the living room. And this one has been refurbished in the past, and I'll show you. If we look here, you can see it was an H24-700, manufactured 3/30 of 11. But if we look at this up sticker here, reconditioned 4/30/2015. Now this one was in the living room. The other one was in the bedroom at my uncle's house. And the problem with, or the reason this one's refurbished and the other one was not, is because the one that was in there started doing something weird, and it wasn't a problem. It wasn't like a fault. It was somebody pressed a button or something, and it kept reverting to 480i, and he had to go in and press the format button until it went to 1080i. Or P or whatever. I think it was I on his TV. But anyway, so he just called and had him replace it. And this was, well, hell, they still gave him an an H24. So this was probably around 2015. I remember when it happened. I'll also show the power inserter. And if you're wondering why I have a power inserter, I'll get to that in a minute. Because I have the Genie in there. But here's the power inserter. The reason I have the power inserter is because the Genie, of course, has a built-in power inserter. So it will power the dish and you don't need a power inserter. Problem is, this Genie loves to update. This Genie updates all the time. And when it does, it shuts off the power to the dish when it restarts, which interrupts all three of my other receivers, or I should say all four of my other receivers. Now I guess if you're running, and this is what they want you to run these days, a Genie client, one of these guys, which runs off of the Genie, uses the Genie's tuners. I don't like these. I don't have a problem with the Genie itself. It works. They're responsive. But these things, I don't like them. They run off of the other one. I want each receiver to be its own receiver, not just a leech off of the other receiver, which each additional one slows it down a bit. So that's why I put the power inserter in there. As long as that power inserter's plugged in, the dish stays powered up and all the other ones work. I put the power inserter, of course, on the DC power pass port, and the other one is not, so it's isolated. So, yeah. Anyway, what I was going to show you, cool thing about the Genie, or the Genie/H24 combo, is if you want to record, if you want to play back stuff, you can. This is not a DVR, of course. These are H24s. H, no R, means it's a HD receiver. It's an HR, it's a HD DVR, and if it's just an R, then it's a standard definition DVR, but we don't have those anymore. So if you want to record using one of these, and you have a Genie, you can do that. If we go into Settings, not Extras, but Settings, and we go down to Whole Home, in Status, you can see Now we're getting a reflection from this light. I will turn it back off. Whole home DVR is authorized. Network DVR, MB, that's master bedroom, that's the one in there. Sharing on, deletion on. Which means I can go into guide on an H24. Let's say I want to record King of the Hill. I press the record button, and I can choose record once, which will, record it once, record series. I'm going to choose do nothing because I don't want to record King of the Hill, but if you wanted to, you could. And I'm going to hit list, and these are the things on the DVR. You can see here they are. And if I want to select and watch one, I can see what it's about. I can hit play. I can delete all of that. But I'll just go ahead and hit play and demonstrate that it does indeed work.
Pass the car at home.
And you can see it is playing. I can pause it. I can fast forward through the commercials. I can rewind it.
Drag it out of here and get this thing running again.
I can exit. And yes, in case you weren't aware, ViceGrip Garage, who is a great YouTube channel, go watch him. He had a show on the Motor Trend channel called Roadworthy Rescues, which is pretty neat. I prefer the YouTube videos because the ones for the Motor Trend channel are kind of rushed for TV, whereas, his videos can be up to 3 or 4 hours long sometimes. Why am I walking into the kitchen? That is to demonstrate this really neat remote. I'm going to hold the remote way over here where it has no line of sight and show you that I can still control this. Because this, and a lot of people don't even realize that the H24 and these old style, the legacy remotes can do this, but you can get the RC66XRF or something like that. I forget the exact part number. This is not one of them. Well, this is one of them, but this shell isn't one. See, I took the shell of an older one with the old DirecTV logo and put the guts out of a newer one in here. But this is an RF remote, so I can sit here in the kitchen and control the TV. Of course, I can't do the volume. I gotta hold it up like that to do the volume, but I can control channels and stuff from in here without an issue, which is pretty neat. And I was going to mention that I bought 2 more of this kind of remote, because in here, where I have the 2 H24s right next to each other, well, if I'm sitting in my chair here, and I want to control that TV, well, you see the problem here? So, it's just the standard IR remote, which, points infrared light at them. This is a RC32, and it's universal. It will control any of these. But if you get an RF remote, and it is in RF remote mode, because a lot of these, people never even realize they have it, so they don't put it in RF mode. I'm pressing guide. It will do nothing, because, in fact, I bet you this receiver is now turned on. This receiver is now turned on, because if you program it to RF, it tunes to a certain frequency. That receiver is looking for that certain frequency, and it's locked. So I can get a remote for this one and pair it to this receiver, and one for that one and pair it to that receiver. They won't crosstalk, so I've done that. Now, let me stop the camera and I'll show you the last receiver. The box you see in front of you contains a DirecTV H20 receiver. I'll just let you take a look at the box here. I went on a quest to find the oldest DirecTV receiver that you can realistically activate and use in 2025. And I believe that would be this, the DirecTV H20. Manufactured in 2006 and 2007, the H20 was the first for a couple of things. It was the first receiver to support MPEG-4, which is what most of DirecTV's high-definition channels use. There's still a few non-high-definition channels running MPEG-2, however, those are beginning to shut down. So any D-series receiver, like the D10 or D12, or any R-series receivers, which are the recording DVR versions of those standard definition receivers, can no longer be used, and they will no longer activate them because they won't work. The H20, however, supports MPEG-4 and SWIM. SWIM is the single-wire system that DirecTV uses now for its satellite dishes, and yes, I realize you're going to be squealing at me to use a tripod here. It is the single-wire system that most of its dishes use now. There are still legacy dishes out there, but if you're a new system, and if your system was installed after, say, 2008, it most likely uses SWIM. So why is this receiver still in the box? Well, this receiver was made in 2006, before SWIM existed. This receiver is running a very old firmware version that doesn't recognize SWIM. So, we kind of have gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. This kind of spiraled out of control, this whole H20 situation. I had originally bought this guy, which is an old legacy non-SWIM LNB. You put this, it goes on the end of the dish. And I was going to use this to try to connect that to Satellite 101 so it could download and update the firmware. Well, I decided not to do that, and I instead bought a second and third H20. Now, that one that I just showed you was a model H20-100, which is, I forget who manufactured that, I think RCA or something. The two that I bought are H20-600 receivers. Now, the H20-600, and this confuses a lot of people, is not newer than the H20-100. In fact, in many cases, it seems like that more early revisions are 600s and more later revisions are 100s. However, the second number, the -600, -100, whatever, is the manufacturer. They're made by a different company. Anyway, one of the ones that I bought was new in box as well. But it was in a different looking box. It was a newer looking box. The other one was used, but it showed it powered up in the picture. And in this picture, you could see it was running the later firmware build, one that should support SWIM. Well, I haven't seen that other new in box one yet. It may or may not be running a newer firmware version. I don't know. It hasn't shown up. We will see. The used one did show up. Unfortunately, it did not include an access card. I took the access card out of that other new in box one and indeed put that in there just fine. It worked. So then I called DirecTV to activate it. Now here's the part where I say you can activate an H20. It is the oldest receiver, and I can confidently say that the H20 is the oldest receiver that you can activate and still use in 2025, almost the end of 2025. Not only because it supports MPEG-4 and SWIM, those are the main technical reasons, but because the way it authenticates, the access card type it uses, and everything is very similar to an H24, which, while it is the H24 in itself is 15 years old, they still support. They still give minor bug fix and UI updates every now and then to the H24, and even though they don't give them out anymore. They still activate them, no problem. You can still buy them from Solid Signal, all of that kind of crap. Why is this important? Well, I called them to activate the H20. And I told them the receiver ID number and the access card number. Those are the first things they ask you for. They put those in just fine, and everything seemed to be going fine. They then said, what model is this? And I told her it was an H20-600. She froze up and said, well, we no longer are able to activate H20 receivers because they are obsolete. Now, obsolete meaning what exactly? Generally, obsolete means that it is no longer able to perform the function that it is intended to perform. And that's just completely false. So what did I do? Well, I ended that call. I called back about 10 minutes later, and of course, there's so many different people. I talked, it was a different representative. Gave him the receiver ID, gave him the access card number, and I told them it was an H24. And they activated it. They did ask for some extra information. I had to give them the serial number off of it for some reason. And for some reason, she activated it. It started working. I told her it was working. And she then made me, I guess she didn't make me, she asked me to, and I did because, well, I had nothing to hide, to do a video call. It wasn't really a video call. It was a camera share or something, pretty much where I can show my camera what's going on to her. She said initially to make sure that it was working. I think they were suspicious of me. And, well, I had nothing to hide, so I did that. You might be thinking, well, it's not an H24, so what did you do? Well, I did exactly what she asked. I showed it to her working, showed her the menu. Now, yes, it does have a different UI. Whatever. It's already activated, it's already working, it's a legitimate receiver, it's got a clean, or I should say a clear, valid receiver ID number, so there's nothing illegal about it. So I just showed them, and sure enough, she didn't say anything about that. What I believe they actually were more suspicious of is the fact that I called, I set up service, they came out and installed the service, which was a Genie and 2 Genie Minis. I then called 3 separate times to activate 3 separate legacy receivers and got rid of the Genie Minis. And then I was calling back again to activate a 4th legacy receiver. I think what they were thinking, because she asked me to go around and check all the other receivers to quote-unquote make sure they didn't get kicked off, whatever that means. That didn't happen when I activated the other ones. I think they thought, or they were suspicious, having 5 receivers in one house, that maybe I was sharing service at another location. Because why else would any sane person want, I should say, why else would anyone who doesn't understand how they work want legacy, old, what they consider obsolete receivers and not the Genie? Well, because the Genie Minis have to run off of the Genie, meaning if they're not all on the same location, running off of the same, splitter and whatnot, they won't work. These, I could take this box right now, I could carry this 100 miles away, hook it up to a satellite dish, point that satellite dish at 101, and it would work. And these would keep working too. So I think that's what they thought might be going on. But so the easiest thing to do is just to do what they ask, show them what's going on, and let them think, yeah, this guy's an absolute nut, but he's not stealing cable. So anyway, that's the whole ordeal with that. And if you're wondering if I'm going to activate that other H20 when I get it, probably not. The H20-600 is kind of notorious for overheating and having power supply failures, so I don't think it's a bad idea to have a parts unit. And also, I don't need 6 receivers. I don't need 5 receivers. I really need, I could do 1 in here, one in there, and then one in there, which I run a cable into there under the house. I could really get by with 3. The reason I didn't, I have 2 in the one room now, which I really don't need, but the reason I didn't remove one of these H24s temporarily, or permanently, or whatever, and if I need to in the future I can activate it again, quite simply, I don't know how much longer they're going to keep activating legacy receivers. At this point, you can still activate an H20, or sorry, an H24. You can barely squeak by with an H20 if you tell them it's an H24. But, per their policy, they don't activate used receivers. So basically what I'm saying is, it can be done now. I don't know if 2, 3, 4, 10 years in the future, they will let you activate an H20, H24, whatever it be. Excuse me! I don't know if they will let you activate one, you know, in the future. So I figured might as well not deactivate it because I don't know if I can put it back. But this cat drives me nuts. He gets pissed off for no reason and then just goes on attack mode. Anyway, they're activated, and, you know, since they support MPEG-4, which is basically the requirement, they're fine for the foreseeable future. It's not like they're going to kick it off. They don't deactivate receivers once they're activated. Hell, Shango 66 is still running a D10, which is so old at this point that it runs MPEG-2 only. It doesn't even do high definition, and his channels are slowly starting to get shut down on him. But they still haven't deactivated that receiver, and they're not going to. So basically, it uses the same technology that the genies use, so it should keep working, all of them, so I'm not going to remove them. Anyway, I think I've blabbed on long enough. Let me go ahead and show you the final list that's H20. Okay, here we are in the bedroom with the actual functional H20. And here it is. Now let me tell you, this is a sensitive son of a bitch. I have on top of it a fan. It's just running off the USB port. It barely moves any air, but it does move air. The top of this is ever so slightly warm. The bottom of this is a little warmer than the top, but it's a reasonable temperature. This fan helps a lot. It's just plugged into the USB port on the back of the receiver, as you can see. These things run hot. These were known for running hot even when they were new, and this one is no exception. But when I say it's sensitive, if you see how these are kind of bent, I tried putting the fan inside of it and running it off of the internal power supply, then the USB, and then even an external power supply. And this thing would not function. The picture was all garbled and it kept yelling at me to insert access card. So the fan was putting off some sort of interference that this thing just could not deal with, so I had to put it on the outside. And it doesn't look very good. It's hot glued on there because I can easily remove it if I want to. But yeah, so I'm thinking I might take the cover off of this one because it's got this stupid sticker on it that is just really bad, and put the sticker off of the new old stock one on here when I get it, and once again that'll be a parts unit. This sticker is just stuck on there. It says to use a B-band converter basically, which we don't need. This receiver is a model H20-600 manufactured 4/24 of 06, and I've actually got what appears to be, if I can turn this lamp on, a B-band converter on the back. This is actually a band stop filter, not a B-band converter. And what that does, you see the H20 doesn't have the ability to communicate with whole home DVR like the H24s do. And the frequency that the whole home DVR and all of that stuff operates on interferes with this receiver. So if you just plug the cable directly into it from the swim, it will have a pixelated picture and intermittent code 771 or I think it's 775. Whichever one is communication with dish is screwed up, not communication with satellite. I think that's 775. So you put this on there to filter out those frequencies. I'll show you the access card in this unit, which is the same one in that other H24. This is the actual access card you would expect to find in an H20, not an H24. Once again, the D2 variety. Anyway, the H20, of course, is kind of an odd receiver. It was the first for a lot of things. It was the first HD receiver. It was the second HD receiver, but it was the first one to support MPEG-4. You see, there was an H10, so it was HD, but it did not support SWIM or MPEG-4, which is what DirecTV's HD channels are all on now. They basically released the H20 because people were, or not the H20, the H10, because people wanted HD. You know, everything was going HD, or everything was going to go HD, and they knew it. So they released that, and they were originally doing HD channels in MPEG-2, like their SD channels, but they then decided that they were going to use MPEG-4 instead. So the H20 is, without a shadow of a doubt, the oldest receiver that you can still activate and use in 2025, even though just barely. But it was the first for a lot, but the H20 didn't stick around for long. It was made in 2006, discontinued in 2007, and by 2008 or 9, DirecTV stopped refurbishing them, stopped sending them out. They all switched over to the H21, the H23, later the H24, and of course the H21, 22, or I don't think there was a 22. There might have been a 22. There was definitely a 23, and the 24, those all got, as I showed you, well, now it's the old, but the newer than what this runs firmware, with the dark blue UI. So those even got, in 2021, the new DirecTV logo. So those things have hung around for absolute ever, especially the H24, which came out in 2010 and was made up until 2011, or the H24 came out in 2009, it was discontinued in 2011, sorry. But that thing stuck around for absolute ever. I mean, it's still one of the mainstream receivers. The H20, on the other hand, really lived a short life, and by 2010, most of them, I won't say most of them were gone, but DirecTV was pretty much done with it. The last firmware revision that these run was before that, and they've had no updates since then. However, they still work. They still pull in, as you can see, all of the guide data just fine. The only thing they don't do is the whole home DVR. But whatever. What's kind of cool is you get to see the old channel logos. Like, let me go here. You can see there's the old Cartoon Network logo, like they were wedges. One of my favorite ones, of course, because it's one of my favorite channels. And of course, you've got the old DirecTV logo from before when AT&T bought them. Let's go to Boomerang. It is the old pre-2014 Boomerang logo. And that was just, you know, now it's this, but it used to be that. And another interesting one, which I'll show you in a second, and of course I can change the, well, I can, let's see here. Well, I'm not going to do it. I can change the format of this, but I have it set to do fill the screen if it's a 4:3, but I can adjust that, of course. But yeah, the old light blue and yellow UI that got discontinued around 2011. Well, this basically stayed on it forever, and it will. Let's go to the music channels. Not 5. Damn it. 800. What I was going to show you, and I thought this was interesting, I've always thought the music channels were, their music choice, but I always thought that those were just like a regular TV channel. I didn't think the firmware revision of the box had anything to do with it. Let me go ahead and show them to you, I suppose, on the H24 here, and then on the HR54. If we go to a music channel here, you can see it tells you, of course, the information on that. But it's got the new DirecTV logo. Of course, the H24 did get updated to that, but it's got that here. I always thought this was just like a regular channel, and this was just broadcast to it. If we go to the HR54, I admit I haven't tried it. I don't know if it'll look any different on there, but we can see.
Protect all the rights promised to us by the U.S. Constitution. Make no mistake, this move to ban books is
It does look different. It doesn't have the gradient. It's just flat. I'm going to move off of this because, yeah. So I never knew that that had anything to do with the firmware of the box. I thought it was just, a channel being sent to it. But if we go to here on the H20, and I put in a 5 again for some reason, and I don't know why it's grayed out, we get this channel. You can see it works the same. It's got the information up here, the name of the song, and who did it. But if we look, we have the old DirecTV logo there. I didn't know that's how that worked. I didn't know that had anything to do with the firmware of the box, but I suppose the music channels are just audio sent to the box, and then the box generates its own background. So that's kind of neat. Anyway, the one thing that doesn't work on these, as I mentioned, you can't do the recording.
Those people ain't taking good care of themselves.
What?
If I go into Guide and try to record Bob's Burgers,
The Toho Museum has an interactive display on the history of the garment district? Look, Chip, slow down, all right?
it just makes that weird DirecTV bong sound, the bong. Anyway, so you can't use that. And the one other thing that doesn't work, which doesn't really matter, are, if we go into Settings, View Signal Strength, the box just locks the hell up. It will get to this point and it will stay here for hours. If I press exit, if I press anything, it doesn't respond. If I turn it off and back on, it will still be here. It doesn't do a damn thing. I cannot get out of this no matter what I press. And the reason that I understand for this is apparently when you restart it, which I'm going to go ahead and do now because that's the only way to fix it, is to reset it. When you reset it, you'll notice it says, I think it says, not gathering, I forget the word, but it's getting the satellite info. And I think what it does, from what I understand, is it connects to satellite 101, which is like the main one that gives the guide data and the information about, everything. And satellite 101, it requests the information, it tells it the guide data and all of that, but it also tells it, okay, well, now we're using satellite 99 and we're using 103 and all of that. And from what I understand, something about a new satellite that is being used today works just fine with this receiver. Anyway, you'll see it says receiving satellite info. That's what I'm thinking of. Anyway, there's a new satellite that wasn't around when this firmware version was made, or maybe it was a satellite that used to be here when this firmware revision was made, but it's no longer there. It's one or the other. I don't remember exactly what it was. You can Google this. But anyway, you know, it receives the satellite info, it works fine, it will grab from that satellite that is there that the firmware, I guess, isn't aware of just fine. But if you go to the signal meters, it freaks out because it's either seeing something it's not supposed to or not seeing something it is supposed to. So I don't remember. But yeah, the only way to fix that is to restart it. But other than that, it works fine. And apparently the official advice from DirecTV is, and this reports of this go as far back as 2009, so that's how long ago DirecTV quit caring about and or updating these things. The official advice from DirecTV is, well, if the signal, you know, when I go to the signal meters, it freezes up, the advice is, well, don't do that. So, fair enough. I want to show you the signal meters, though. So we'll go in here on this H24. And I'm pressing previous. Let me just get this off of the music channel before we get a copyright strike. You can see this does have the new logos, of course, as well. MPEG 4 on SD looks terrible. Look how blocky this is. MPEG 2 didn't look that bad, but whatever. Anyway, let's go to the signal meters. I want to show you we've got really good signal despite where the dish is, which I think I've shown already. On 101, we've got all 99s and 100s. I think I've seen a 98 or whatever. But right now it looks like all 99s and 100s. On 99, not much different. I believe it's this band on 99. Yes. We see a 0. I don't know why we see a 0, but we always see a 0 on all of the receivers. So I'm assuming that that is normal to see a 0 there. Everything seems to be working, and I would think if it was a dish alignment issue, we wouldn't be seeing such good signals and then just absolute 0 on one singular transponder. But as you can see, these all look fine. Of course, we don't have S. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's about all I have to show here. So, there you go. Okay, here we are under the house, looking at some ticking time bomb polybutylene piping. And if you're wondering why we're under the house, well, that is because that is where the splitter is, and apparently a wrench. See, here's the splitter. Now, why is the splitter under the house instead of out on the other side where the splitter for the cable used to be, inside of the cable, you know, the box where the cable goes? I don't know. He ran the cable from the dish, which is up by the driveway, down into that box, and then just kind of put like a union in there, and then ran it to here and put the splitter here. I don't know if this is better in some way other than the fact that it will stay dry, or if this just happened to be less work. I'm thinking the latter, because this is the line going to the living room and it stops right here, so maybe that's why. I don't know. This cable is old. This was already here. So once again, I'm thinking it was just the more convenient thing for them to do. Not that I care. So under here, we have a couple cables. This one here is going to the master bedroom where the genie is. This one here, which is installed very professionally, is underground feeder cable, which is going to my air conditioner in my office. And I am the one who installed this mess. Going over here, way back in there, is going to my bedroom, which is an H24. The other one here is going to my office, and then this one is going to the living room. Now the way these work, if you're unaware, the dish requires power to function. It's not just like an antenna that picks up a signal. It has active components in it. It requires power going to it to function. So we have what's called a power inserter. The power inserter sends power to the dish to power the dish so the dish can work. This splitter is a swim splitter, specifically whatever part number that says. And this line, if we look in from swim, and it says DC power pass. This port here is the main port, which was going into there where the Genie is, because the Genie has a built-in power inserter. I showed you the power inserter inside previously, but the Genie has a built-in one, meaning you don't need to use one.